It's funny how you can live a whole life thinking you know exactly what's going on, and then one tiny slip, one moment of curiosity, and everything unravels. That's how it all started, in a way that I couldn't have predicted. I remember the exact moment I found out, even though I didn't really find out at first. It wasn't some dramatic confrontation or shocking revelation. No, it started with something far less obvious, something so small that it could easily have been overlooked. It was just a letter, a single piece of paper that didn't belong to me. I didn't mean to find it. I wasn't looking for anything. But it was there, staring me in the face as I walked through the living room, and I didn't know at the time how much my life was about to change. The evening had been like any other, the kids in bed, the house quieter than usual, and I had been sorting through a pile of things on the table, bills, papers, old receipts. Mara had left earlier, saying she was going to visit her sister, something about a girls' night, and I didn't think much of it. It wasn't uncommon. She deserved time for herself. But for some reason, that night, there was something off in the air. It wasn't loud. It wasn't in your face. But it was there. The letter sat in the corner of the table, its bright red envelope a sharp contrast against the otherwise bland stack of paperwork. I almost missed it, but then I paused. It wasn't addressed to me, but the handwriting was unfamiliar enough to make me hesitate. I should have just put it down. But I didn't. Maybe I was too tired, or maybe it was that strange, creeping feeling that something wasn't right. Maybe it was the way the letter seemed to be waiting for me, as though I was the only one who could see it. I don't know what it was, but I slid it out of the envelope. The first line made me freeze. I had no clue he found out until I discovered his heartbreaking farewell letter. It didn't make sense at first. My brain couldn't connect the dots. The words were too blunt, too direct. I stared at the paper for a long time, wondering if I had read it wrong. Maybe it was a joke. But no, the more I looked at it, the more I realized it wasn't. There was no mistake. The words were clear. I looked around, as if expecting someone to jump out and say, "Gotcha," but nothing happened. The house was still, silent, too silent. I couldn't even hear the faint hum of the refrigerator. It was as if time had stopped. I tried to push it away. I thought maybe I was imagining things. Maybe I had misread the letter. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. And what did it even mean? Who was this he? Who was this farewell letter for? And why was it in my house, addressed to Mara? I didn't know what to do. The letter seemed so out of place, so personal. I couldn't just ignore it, but I also couldn't just confront her without knowing what it meant. I had to figure it out on my own first. So I tucked the letter back into its envelope, sat down on the couch, and waited for her to come home. The hours dragged on. I kept thinking about the letter, about the words that were so specific, yet so vague. Who was involved? What did I not know? My thoughts spiraled, turning in on themselves, feeding on my uncertainty. I was afraid of the answer, but I was even more afraid of living in the dark. When Mara came home, she was acting normal, almost too normal. She smiled, kissed me on the cheek, and asked about my day. It was like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. I could feel it in the air between us. The silence that wasn't there before, that small crack in the wall I'd spent years building around us. I didn't ask her about the letter. I didn't confront her. I couldn't. Something about it all felt like I wasn't meant to know yet. But I knew I couldn't leave it alone. Not anymore. As the days passed, I couldn't shake the image of that letter from my mind. Every time I looked at Mara, I wondered, did she know what was happening? Or was she just as much in the dark as I was? It seemed impossible, but the longer I stayed silent, the more the words of that letter haunted me. Eventually, my mind started to piece things together. The late nights, the strange texts, the secretive phone calls. They were all little breadcrumbs, pieces of a puzzle I wasn't ready to solve yet. But I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. What had started with that one letter had turned into something bigger than I ever imagined. And it wasn't until I found another letter, hidden, this time, that the truth began to surface, piece by painful piece. But that's a story for later. For now, I'll tell you that it was the small things, the insignificant moments, that changed everything. Sometimes, the truth doesn't come in loud crashes or huge events. Sometimes, it's quiet. It waits for you to notice it. I couldn't stop thinking about that letter. The more I tried to distract myself, the more the words haunted me. I had no clue he found out until I discovered his heartbreaking farewell letter. It felt like a riddle, something that was just out of reach, teasing me, begging me to figure it out. But how? How could I understand what was going on when I didn't even know who he was? For the next few days, I did nothing but watch her. It was like I was a stranger in my own home, observing from the sidelines. Mara was still acting normal, like nothing had changed. She cooked, she cleaned, she laughed at my jokes. But there was this undercurrent of tension between us, something unspoken. I couldn't explain it, but it was there, lurking beneath the surface. I told myself I had to let it go, that I was overthinking things. But the nagging feeling never left. I had to know more. I had to find out what was really happening. So, late one evening, after she had gone to bed, I decided to go through her things. It wasn't something I was proud of, but in that moment, I felt like it was my only option. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I was desperate. I started with her desk. Papers were scattered everywhere, her usual chaos, but nothing out of the ordinary. Then, my eyes landed on a small notebook tucked away in the corner, its cover faded, like it had been sitting there for a while. I flipped it open, thinking it was just a journal or something meaningless. But when I read the first entry, I froze. It wasn't just a journal. It was a log of dates and names, with cryptic notes next to each one. There were codes I didn't understand, numbers I couldn't make sense of. But then, one entry caught my eye. It had a date that lined up perfectly with the night Mara had been out with her sister. It wasn't her sister's name written there, though. It was a man's name. I couldn't believe it. My mind raced, trying to piece everything together. Had she been seeing someone else? Had I been blind to the signs all this time? It felt like a punch in the gut. But then, as I kept reading, I found something even worse. In the corner of the page, scrawled in hastily written ink, were the words, "The goodbye is coming soon. He won't suspect a thing." My heart dropped. Who was she talking about? Who was he? And why was she talking about a goodbye? The thought of Mara planning something behind my back, something I wasn't even aware of, made my stomach turn. I had to confront her. The time for waiting was over. But as I stood there, holding the notebook in my hands, I realized something. I didn't want to know the truth. I didn't want to face what was inevitably coming. But I had no choice. The truth was already here, and I couldn't ignore it any longer. I carefully put the notebook back where I had found it, as if trying to pretend none of it had ever happened. But deep down, I knew things would never be the same. The quiet tension between us was about to explode. And when it did, I wasn't sure if anything would ever make sense again. But I had made up my mind. I was going to find out the truth, even if it destroyed everything, even if it shattered me. The following days dragged on, each one feeling longer than the last. I couldn't shake the gnawing sense of dread that had taken root inside me. Every time I looked at Mara, I saw her differently, like a stranger in my own home. The warmth we once shared felt so distant, and the more I thought about the cryptic messages in the notebook I'd found, the more I realized I didn't know her at all. The house felt suffocating, and I knew it was only a matter of time before everything came crashing down. But I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to face the truth. And yet, the more I delayed, the worse it became. I had to confront her. One evening, after we'd put the kids to bed, Mara sat down on the couch next to me, casually flipping through her phone. It was the perfect moment. Or so I thought. I could feel the tension in the air, thick and palpable. My heart raced as I gathered the courage to speak. "Mara," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "We need to talk." She glanced up at me, her expression neutral, though her eyes betrayed a flicker of uncertainty. "About what?" she asked, her tone light, but I could sense the underlying defensiveness. I didn't know where to start. Do I ask her directly about the notebook? The letters? Or do I take a different approach? I was already in too deep, and at that moment, every ounce of doubt that had been haunting me boiled to the surface. "About everything," I said, my voice harder now. "About what's been going on. About you, about us. Something's off, Mara. I can feel it." She stiffened beside me, her fingers tightening around her phone. "What are you talking about?" Her voice was steady, but there was a hint of something else there. "Fear, maybe. Or guilt." "I found something," I continued, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. "I found a letter, a note, and then a notebook with dates and names, and a message about a goodbye. What's going on, Mara? Who is he?" The silence that followed felt like it lasted an eternity. Her eyes widened, and for a moment, she looked like a deer caught in headlights. I could see her trying to calculate the best way out, the words she could use to cover her tracks, but nothing came. I don't know what you're talking about, she finally said, her voice tight. You're overreacting. It's just work stuff. Nothing for you to worry about. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But the doubt was already planted too deep. It's more than just work. I'm not stupid, Mara. I know something's happening. You're acting different. You've been distant, secretive. And now this letter. Don't lie to me. She looked away, her gaze flicking to the window, avoiding my eyes. Please, just drop it, she muttered, almost to herself. I can't do this right now. I felt my anger bubbling up, but I kept it in check. If this was going to work, I needed answers. I deserved the truth. I deserved to know what's really going on. She exhaled sharply, her shoulders sagging as if the weight of the moment had become too much. Then, in a low voice, she spoke. I'm sorry, Charles. I never meant for it to go this far. But I've been seeing someone. For a while now. My chest tightened. Who? The question slipped out before I could think. His name is Ethan, she said softly, her voice barely a whisper. I didn't plan it. It just happened. I tried to end it, but I couldn't. I couldn't stop seeing him. The words hit me like a punch in the stomach. Ethan. The name echoed in my mind, but it didn't seem to fit. It didn't make sense. This wasn't the woman I knew, the woman I married. Mara had always been so reliable, so trustworthy. How had it come to this? Why? Was all I could manage to say, my voice cracking. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you say something? I was scared, she admitted, tears welling up in her eyes. I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't know how to tell you. I thought I could stop it before you ever found out, but it got too complicated. It wasn't enough. I couldn't process it all. This wasn't just about betrayal. It was about everything I thought I knew being ripped apart. How long? I asked, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. A year, she whispered, looking away. A year of lies. The room felt colder, and I didn't know how to respond. What was left to say? The person I thought I knew, the woman I'd built my life with, had been hiding something this massive from me. And now, I had no idea where to go from here. I didn't know if I was ready to hear the rest of it, but I knew that I had to. The truth had spilled out, but it didn't feel like enough. There was still something missing, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. But I wasn't going to let it go. Not yet. There was more to this story, and I was determined to uncover every last bit of it. After Mara's confession, the room felt suffocating. I could hardly breathe. Her words echoed in my mind. A year of lies. It was too much to take in, too much to process all at once. I sat there in stunned silence, trying to understand how everything had slipped through my fingers. How had I not seen it? How could I have missed the signs? Mara, I finally whispered, the weight of the word feeling heavier than I could explain. Why didn't you just leave me? Why drag this out? She shook her head, tears streaking down her face. I didn't know how. I didn't want to hurt you more than I already had. But I didn't know what to do. Everything felt like it was slipping away, and then when it came to Ethan, I couldn't stop myself. Her voice broke as she said his name. Ethan. I couldn't get past that name. I couldn't understand it. He wasn't someone I'd ever heard of before. It made no sense. If she'd been seeing him for so long, why hadn't I noticed? Who is he? I asked, my voice thick with disbelief. Where did he come from? Mara wiped her eyes and took a deep breath, but she hesitated before answering. He's someone from work. We met a while ago, and things just escalated. I felt a flicker of anger. Escalated? What? You just fell into an affair. How does that happen? She bit her lip, clearly struggling to find the right words. It wasn't like that at first. It wasn't planned. But he's different, Charles. He's different in a way that I haven't felt in a long time. I know that doesn't make it right, but I didn't know how to stop. The more she spoke, the more it felt like I was slipping further away from her. It wasn't just about the affair. It was about how easily she justified it, how casually she spoke about it like it was a phase she'd gone through, like I wasn't even a part of the equation. I couldn't help but ask again, who is he? Mara looked at me, her eyes wide with guilt. His name is Ethan Riley. He works in the marketing department with me. She seemed to hesitate for a moment, then added, but I don't think you'll know him. He's relatively new to the company. Ethan Riley. The name rang no bells, but something about it still unsettled me. Why did it feel like there was more to this story than she was telling me? As I processed what Mara had just told me, my thoughts turned into a whirlpool of confusion. I needed to know more. There were too many gaps in her story, too many holes I couldn't ignore. Something wasn't right. I didn't know what it was yet, but I knew I needed to find out. And I wasn't going to stop until I had all the answers. Ethan Riley. The name echoed in my mind like a ghost I couldn't shake. I kept replaying it over and over, trying to find some connection, some clue that could explain why I felt so uneasy. Mara's affair wasn't just a betrayal. It felt like a piece of a puzzle I was failing to complete. For days, I couldn't stop thinking about him. Ethan Riley. I tried to picture him, what he looked like, how he acted, how someone like Mara could fall for him. She had always been picky about the people she spent time with, her standards high, her trust hard to earn. So how had this man slipped past everything I thought I knew about her? I tried searching for him online, hoping I'd find something, anything, that would explain this growing sense of unease. But I found nothing. No social media profiles, no work references, no sign of him anywhere. It was like he didn't exist. At first, I thought maybe he was just another secret, something Mara was protecting me from. But the more I dug, the more I realized it didn't make sense. If he were just a colleague, why couldn't I find anything about him? Mara wasn't the type to keep someone this hidden unless there was something much deeper going on. I tried to shake the thought. Maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe I was just desperate for an answer, any answer. But the more I thought about it, the more I couldn't ignore the one glaring fact. This didn't add up. If this affair had been going on for over a year, why was Ethan so elusive? Then, a week later, something unexpected happened. I came home early from work, trying to clear my head, and as I walked into the house, I heard voices, Mara's and another man's. My first instinct was to turn around and leave, but then I heard his laugh. It was warm, familiar, too familiar. It hit me like a bolt of lightning. I slowly walked toward the living room, my heart pounding, and peeked around the corner. There, sitting on our couch, was Mara and Ethan. I couldn't believe it. This wasn't the man I'd imagined. Ethan was no stranger, but someone I recognized, someone I had seen before. He was my old friend, the one I had trusted, the one I'd invited to dinner parties, shared stories with, laughed with. Ethan had been part of our lives, and I had never once suspected him of anything. The betrayal went deeper than I could have ever imagined. The man I had considered a friend was the one who had destroyed everything. But why? Why hadn't Mara told me? Why had she lied about who he was? The room spun, and for a moment, I felt like I was going to collapse. I stepped back silently, as if time had slowed down. My hands were shaking, and my mind was racing, trying to make sense of this new reality. Mara hadn't just been seeing someone. She had been seeing him all along. The man I had called a friend. The man I trusted with my life. It wasn't until that moment that I realized just how far gone everything was. The affair wasn't the only betrayal. It was the lies, the manipulation, the years of pretending nothing was wrong. And now, I had to face the truth. This wasn't just about a wife breaking a vow. This was about everything: trust, friendship, and the fragile fabric of my reality being torn apart. I didn't know what to do next, but I knew one thing for certain. Nothing would ever be the same again. It felt like the ground had been ripped from under me. There I was, standing frozen in the doorway, watching the man I had called a friend, laughing and drinking wine with my wife, while I was left standing outside my own life. My head swirled with 1,000 questions, none of which had answers. How could this happen? How could Ethan, the same person who had eaten dinner at my table, be the one to betray me like this? I wanted to confront them right there, but something stopped me. I couldn't process it yet. I was too angry, too hurt. Instead, I turned and walked out the door, not saying a word. My heart was pounding in my chest, and the tears I tried so hard to fight back burned behind my eyes. I didn't know where to go, what to do, but I knew I had to leave. I couldn't look at either of them, not yet. I spent the next few hours wandering aimlessly. The cold night air did nothing to calm me down, but at least it gave me a sense of distance, something to separate me from the chaos I had just witnessed. My mind was in overdrive. I tried to piece everything together: the subtle hints, the secrecy, the strange behavior. Mara had been hiding something from me for so long, and Ethan had been right under my nose, playing his part in it. I couldn't believe it. I didn't know which hurt more, her betrayal or his. Eventually, I found myself in a small park, sitting on a bench beneath a tree, staring at the city lights. I didn't know what I was waiting for. Maybe I was waiting for the anger to subside, for the rage and confusion to give way to clarity. But nothing made sense. Everything felt like a lie. Around midnight, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from Mara. "Where are you? Please come home. We need to talk." I almost ignored it. I didn't want to go back to that house, not with her and him there. But I knew I couldn't run forever. I had to face this, no matter how much it tore me apart. With a heavy heart, I typed a quick response. "I'll be home in 10 minutes. The drive back was torturous. Each mile felt like a step toward the inevitable confrontation, and every second that passed, I felt more and more sick to my stomach. What would I say? What could I say? When I walked back into the house, the first thing I noticed was the silence. It was thick, uncomfortable. Mara was sitting on the couch, her eyes swollen from crying, her face pale and worn. Ethan was gone. I didn't know if he left on his own or if she had asked him to, but I didn't care. The sight of him was enough to make me sick. I stood in the doorway for a moment, unsure of how to begin. Finally, I broke the silence. "I saw him," I said, my voice low, controlled, but filled with an anger I couldn't hide. "I saw you both. I saw you with him." Mara didn't flinch. She just nodded, her lips trembling. "I know. I should have told you. I'm sorry." Sorry. That word. It felt so hollow coming from her. How could she think that word could fix any of this? "You didn't just lie to me, Mara," I said, taking a step forward. "You lied to me about him. You lied to me about everything." Her head dropped into her hands. "I know," she whispered. "I know. I never wanted to hurt you, but I've hurt you more than I ever could have imagined." I wanted to scream at her, to ask her how she could have done this to me. But instead, I found myself asking something I didn't expect. "Why Ethan? Why him of all people?" She looked up at me then, her eyes full of regret. "Because he knew me, Charles. He saw me in a way you didn't anymore. He listened to me when I felt like I was invisible. He made me feel like I was, I don't know, important again." The words stung. They shouldn't have, but they did. Because deep down, I knew the truth. I had let things slip. I had been so focused on everything else, work, life, distractions, that I hadn't seen her slipping away from me. I had failed her, and I had failed myself. But there was one more thing I needed to know. Was it worth it? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Was it worth betraying everything we had for a man who? She cut me off, her voice shaking. No, it wasn't worth it. None of it was worth it. She stood up, her hands outstretched as if reaching for some kind of redemption. "I'm so sorry, Charles. I've ruined everything, and I don't know how to fix it." I couldn't look at her anymore. My eyes filled with tears, but I refused to let them fall. I turned and walked toward the door. "I don't know what to do anymore, Mara," I said, my voice breaking. "I don't even know who you are anymore." And with that, I left. The days after I left felt like a blur. Every morning I woke up hoping it was all a nightmare, but it wasn't. I couldn't shake the image of Mara with Ethan, couldn't stop replaying their laugh in my head. Every little detail, from the way he looked at her to the casual intimacy between them, burned in my mind. I spent the next few days avoiding her, trying to make sense of everything. Mara texted me constantly, begging me to come back, to talk, to listen. But I couldn't. I couldn't face her. Not yet. Not until I understood why she did what she did. Then, one night, something happened that I wasn't prepared for. I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. "Hello." I answered cautiously. The voice on the other end was calm, controlled, but there was something off about it. "Charles, it's Ethan. We need to talk." My stomach sank. I had no idea what he wanted, but I knew it wouldn't be good. "Talk? About what?" I asked, my voice cold. "I think you need to hear something. Something you don't know about. Something Mara's been hiding." I wanted to hang up. I didn't want anything more from Ethan. But a part of me, an angry, curious part, wanted to know. What else was there? What had Mara been hiding? "Fine," I said, my voice tight. "Tell me." He paused for a moment, and then he spoke, his words slow and deliberate. "It's not just about the affair, Charles. It's about what's been going on for the past year. There's more to it than you think." The way he said it made my blood run cold. My mind raced with 100 possibilities, but nothing could prepare me for what he was about to reveal. "You don't know this, but Mara and I weren't just seeing each other," he continued. "We've been planning something together. Something bigger." I felt my heart stop. "What do you mean planning something? What are you talking about?" Ethan's voice dropped, barely a whisper now. "Mara wasn't just unhappy in your marriage, Charles. She was unhappy with the life she was living. The life you gave her. She wants something more. Something different. And I was going to help her get it. The words hit me like a slap across the face. My mind scrambled to piece this together, but the pieces weren't fitting. What was he saying? What kind of plans had they made together? I don't understand, I said, my voice shaking. What were you planning? What did you help her with? Ethan was quiet for a long time. Then he spoke again, his voice tinged with something darker. She was going to leave you, Charles. She was going to take everything, your money, your home, your life, and make it look like you had nothing. She was going to destroy you from the inside out, and I was going to be the one to help her. I couldn't breathe. The words he spoke didn't make sense. I had to be hearing him wrong. I had to be. I didn't want to do it, but she convinced me, he said, his voice regretful but still calculating. We had it all planned out. All she needed was the right moment to strike. I dropped the phone, my head spinning. Was this really happening? How could Mara, the woman I loved, have been planning something like this behind my back? The betrayal went deeper than I ever imagined. It wasn't just an affair. It was a conspiracy, a calculated destruction of everything I thought I knew. The anger I felt was beyond anything I had ever experienced. I needed to see her. I needed answers, even if I was afraid of what I would hear. I grabbed my keys and stormed out of the house, heading straight for the one place I knew I could find her, our home. The place that had once been our sanctuary. But now, it felt like the place where everything was falling apart. I didn't know how it would end, but I knew one thing for sure. The truth was more terrifying than I could have ever imagined, and I was about to face it head on. I arrived at the house, my heart pounding in my chest. The air felt thick, suffocating. But as I stood in front of the door, I realized something. I didn't need to confront Mara with anger. I didn't need to scream or demand answers. What I needed was to understand why everything had fallen apart. I had to know if there was a way to rebuild, whether it was with her or without her. I knocked on the door, my hand trembling. But as soon as Mara opened it, I saw something different in her eyes. They weren't just full of guilt or regret anymore. There was a flicker of something else. Hope, maybe. She stepped aside without saying anything, her face pale but determined. I know you've heard everything from Ethan, she said quietly, her voice shaky. And I know I've destroyed everything, but I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for a chance to explain, a chance to show you the truth, the whole truth. I nodded slowly, stepping inside. The house felt colder than I remembered. It felt empty, but we both stood there, unsure of how to move forward. Mara, I said softly, looking at her. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to process any of this. But what I do know is that I want to understand. I need to hear it all. No more secrets, no more lies. She swallowed hard and sat down. I've been selfish, Charles. I've been hiding from the truth for so long, and I thought I could get away with it. But I was wrong. I hurt you, and I hurt myself in the process. I don't know if we can fix this, but I'm willing to try. Not just for us, but for me too. I took a deep breath, the weight of everything pressing down on me. It felt like the walls were closing in, but at the same time, something inside me was breaking open. I don't know if I can trust you again, I said honestly, my voice tight. But I don't want to lose the person I married. Not without giving it a shot. Mara's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded, wiping them away. I don't deserve your trust, but I will spend every day earning it. If you're willing to try, then so am I. We sat in silence for a long time, each of us lost in our thoughts. But slowly, piece by piece, the weight began to lift. The anger was still there, but it wasn't all-consuming anymore. We had a long road ahead, but for the first time in a while, I felt like we could walk it together, if we both truly wanted to. The next few months weren't easy. There were moments of doubt, of hurt, of longing for the person we used to be. But through it all, we kept talking. We worked on the parts of ourselves we had ignored. And slowly, trust began to rebuild, not perfectly, but in small ways. In the end, it wasn't the affair that defined us. It was the decision to face the truth together, to take responsibility for our mistakes and choose each other despite everything. We didn't go back to how things were. We couldn't. But we started a new chapter, one where honesty and openness became the foundation of everything. And somehow, we both realized that the love we shared wasn't dead. It had been broken, but not beyond repair. And for the first time in a long time, I saw a future. Not a perfect one, but one that was ours. Together.